when we slow down, we pay attention to ourselves and we downregulate our nervous systems and we stay present and do our own inner work, which is what you're speaking to, our ability to be present to our kids is so much more profound.
You're listening to Parenting with Impact, the podcast for parents like you, raising complex kids to become capable, independent adults, even in this complicated world. Each episode brings expert insights and real-life strategies to help you parent with confidence, calm, and clarity. Here are your hosts, Elaine and Diane.
Welcome back, everybody, to another conversation in the Parenting with Impact podcast. My guest is Peter Fitzpatrick, and we're going to be talking about, well, he's going to tell us a little bit more, but basically cultivating emotional trust, safety, and intelligence, I think, in neurodivergent young people. That sounds like a summation of what you and I were talking about before, but welcome, Peter. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Elaine. I'm super excited to be here.
Why don't you start by telling us how you got to be working with a neurodivergent audience? Like, what brings you here?
Yeah, well, I always pause at this moment to wonder how much of my story to share. When I was 7, my parents divorced, and it was a pretty ugly event. It was a pretty challenging event for our family. And that meant that our house was, I'll just call for now, emotionally unstable until I left for university. And I didn't recognize the patterns, beliefs, and wounds that I developed over that period until I was about 28. And I also didn't know until I was in university that I had ADHD.
Okay.
And so I had an upbringing in which I felt a lot of feelings, which is a symptom of ADHD, like heavy swings.
Right.
And didn't really have anyone to talk to what was going on with respect to those swings and also with respect to my parents.
So let me see if I got it right. So you were diagnosed with ADHD in college, and so, which we all know means you feel the feels. But then something else happened at 28, later in your 20s, that kind of brought you to a new awareness.
Yeah, that's right. A relationship.
Okay.
So the right partner.
Yeah.
So I spent about 8 years unwinding all of that. I will get to the point quickly.
I'm listening. Yeah.
And about a year ago, so I spent 8 years on identifying those beliefs, patterns, and hopefully I'm towards the end of the journey of unworking them all. And about a year ago, I was thinking about what I could do with this like breakout technology and AI. There's been so much change in what AI enables us to create now. And the idea of creating a toy with it came up. And I shared that with my co-founder, a woman named Robin Campbell, who at the time was writing cartoons at Lego that helped kids build social emotional skills.
Okay.
So she made this comment where she's like, maybe if we did that, we could create a toy that helped kids process their emotions. And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, wow, I needed that growing up. Like, could you imagine if I had a little plushie to talk about all the stuff that was going on? I would have avoided so much pain if there was like a structured conversation I could have with someone I trusted or something I trusted.
Wow.
That sort of set us off on the path. We were in Whistler, British Columbia at the time. We knew San Francisco was the place to build that business. So we got in the car and drove down to San Francisco and applied to hackathons on the way. One of those hackathons was the TED AI hackathon that they host here during the AI week or weekend every year here. We won.
Okay. You won?
We won, yeah. And so I quit my job when I was about to go on stage to meet Chris, the founder of TED. And then that kind of set us off. And we've been doing it ever since.
Wow. So when you won, did that mean you got funding or support to actually do it? Or it just gave you access to be able to go out and get funding?
Yeah, it just helped with funding a little bit. If anything, even more than that, we got a lot done over the weekend from a product development perspective. And it was just like, oh, wow, this thing is valuable.
It's got legs. Yeah.
At the event, there was like crowds would form whenever we gave demos. I'd never experienced that before. I've built technology my whole life and never have I had like crowds form around the software UI we built or whatever. And so it just told us that we were onto something important.
That's amazing. So what is it that's important here that we're talking about? Because, and we'll talk a little bit later. I'll give everybody a chance to find out more about what you do and what this product is. But what's the problem you're trying to solve?
The problem we're trying to solve is that I've spent a lot of time talking to parents over the past year, and one of the things that's clear is that parenting is hard.
Yeah.
And I think it's always been hard, but it's getting harder.
Yeah.
And
I would agree.
I'm sure there's lots of reasons for that, but the primary one that keeps coming up in my conversations is that families are more remote than in the past. Like
By that, you mean extended family?
From family and community, like the whole "it takes a village" idea. The village is thinner and thinner, and less likely to come over and like deliver pie when you're sick.
Yeah.
So data shows that parents spend twice as much time with their kids now than compared to 50 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I can track it down and send it to you.
Yeah.
And so there's less community coming over to help. It's less likely for kids to be able to play around in the neighborhood with the neighbors' kids. In fact, that's almost unheard of in most neighborhoods now. And so parents have a greater burden of time they have to put in to raising their kids. And they don't have twice as much time.
Right.
And so what do they end up doing? Screens is like the most common sort of like guilty way to help with this like greater burden.
Right.
But it's pretty clear that's not healthy in excess.
Right.
And so that's the problem we're trying to solve, is like, how do we help parents raise kids without having to put them in front of screens, given the changes in our world? And then if you look at the neurodiverse community, you can like take that problem and turn the dial up. Children have such a greater need for attention that the problem is much worse.
Right. So children are needing more from parents who are already expected to do more at a time when they get less support. And the tax on, the easy solution is actually helpful in the short run and can be damaging in the long run.
Yeah, that's really well articulated.
Yeah, that sounds complicated, doesn't it? Which, we haven't had a chance to talk much about what we do at Impact, but what we do is we support parents of neurodiverse kids by teaching them to use neurodiversity-informed coaching skills. Because coaching is an empowerment-based modality that allows them to not become their kid's coach, but to take a coach-like approach, to improve the way they communicate, to be able to be more present when they're present. We can't give them more time, but we can improve the nature of the time when they're with their kids.
Yeah, that makes some sense. Yeah. We think about that a lot too. Like if you go into ChatGPT and you ask it how you should do something, it will be like, well, here's how you should do it. And then it lists the solution. I mean, right. You've experienced that. So we've had to put a lot of effort into having Fawn, the companion that we've built for families, not do that, and to coach the child through coming up with their own solution.
Yeah.
Well, to just give it to them.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of research on that. If you give it to them, it's information and they'll vote on whether they agree with it or not. But if you involve them in it, then it's their insight and they will own that information differently or that decision differently.
You're making me think of my dad. Growing up, I would constantly ask him things and he'd be like, let's think that through. And I'd be like, no, just tell me, Dad. Come on. I know you know. That's funny.
It really is. Let's take a quick break and let's come back and find out a little bit more. Hi, it's Elaine. And if you like this podcast, you'll love our coach approach. Whether you're a parent looking for support or a professional supporting families, we invite you to download a free guide with 12 key coaching tools at impactparents.com/gift. You can begin using a coach approach to help kids become more independent or improve all of your conversations at work and at home. That's impactparents.com/gift. Welcome back, everybody. My guest is Patrick Fitzpatrick. Peter.
That happens
Peter
all
Fitzpatrick.
The time. That happens all the time.
But you could hear how my brain went there. It's Peter Fitzpatrick. And we're kind of talking about emotional and social development in neurodiverse kids. When you and I first started talking, you said there's some research that you might want to reference. When kids spend time and that kind of thing. Let's talk about what you've learned and what's important for our parents.
Yeah, there was this fabulous study done at Yale that I think we'll share in the show notes. But the study was looking at how different activities help children. It was done with children that have autism, open up socially to adults. And it compared 3 activities. The first was a drawing exercise. The second was time spent on a tablet. And the third was time spent with a robot that appeared autonomous. They were cheating. It was like a mirror that the kid couldn't see through and they were controlling it. But it appeared to the child that the robot was autonomous.
What does autonomous mean? That it was responsive to the child?
It moves on its own. It
Okay.
has a brain of its own that it's using to exist in the world.
Okay.
It was a little dinosaur. So all it could do was walk, actually. And what they found through that study is that if a child did a drawing exercise and then an adult entered the room that they didn't know, they wouldn't open up to the adult any more than if they didn't do the drawing exercise. The same goes for the tablet. If I remember correctly, it might have actually been worse after the tablet, but I'm not 100% on that.
Right.
And then the third thing is when they used the robot for just 5 minutes, they would start talking to the adult in the room in a way they didn't after the 2 other exercises.
Okay.
And so there's something about robots, and I think probably if a dog had entered the room, you'd see a similar. This isn't part
You
of
mean a live dog?
a real live dog. Yeah, there's there's something about us where when we're moving, when something comes into our real space, it doesn't work on screen, and we relate to it, it opens us up to others. I experience a similar thing. I don't know if you've ever gone on a walk with a dog in the park, but you'll talk to people
Every day.
Well, and I bet talk to people that if you went there without your dog, you wouldn't talk to. And so there's this weird thing as humans, we will like open up to others when these animals or robots, I think they sit in the same part of our brain. This is my conjecture,
So you're using the word robot. And I know that for me as a parent, and I suspect for others listening, your notion of a robot and mine may not be very similar. Because I hear robot and I think Danger, Danger, Will Robinson, or the Jetsons, or I see mechanical, non-human, not humanoid-like, Star Wars. When I hear robot, I don't think of something human-like or soft or animal-like.
I'm really glad you brought that up. And I think it makes me grateful for my co-founder. It's a woman named Robin Campbell. She was adamant that it be cute and cuddly. And so, yeah, the Fawn is the name of our company and the robot that we've created. And it is cuddly and cute and soft. So
Okay.
it looks like a little baby fawn, a cartoon version of a baby deer.
A baby deer. So when you say robot, you mean for you, like what we're talking about is actually a stuffed animal that is able to interact in some way.
That's right. The study was done with a dinosaur, if I remember correctly, that was not soft and cuddly. But when we think about robots in this context, they're soft and cuddly for us. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So we're not talking about mechanical beings. We're talking about some entity that the kid can interact with that has them feeling like they're connecting, is what I think I'm hearing you saying.
Well, I think the
like
crucial
they would with an animal.
Yeah, the crucial point of it is that they anthropomorphize it. It's a tough word. It means that view it as having human emotion without it being a human. That's the key.
So if it's not a human, how does it help a child with social or emotional development?
So we've got 2 threads of conversation going. So there's the study, in which case it was just a dinosaur that could walk across the desk, if I remember correctly. I think that's right.
Okay.
Couldn't speak or anything. And in that instance, we actually don't know why it works. We just know that it does. And so there's something deep in the brain that goes like, similar to a dog, in my view, where it's just like, oh, that thing appears to be sad or happy or ambitious or curious. And there's something about that being here in the room with me that makes me more open to you, adult.
Interesting.
We don't really know why. We just know it's.
And they haven't done that research with animals?
They may have. It just wasn't done in the study. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, certainly that's where my bridge is coming from in my own experience.
Right.
Animals have a very similar effect.
Yeah. Like I have this very strong memory of hanging out with my dog when I was a kid. I told my dog everything.
Yeah.
Right. And we wrote poetry together and we, whatever like that.
Yeah.
I was a safe being. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, many of us form relationships with animals that make us feel safer. And then if you want to switch to the thread to what we're creating, you can think of it as an animal that has the capacity to speak.
Okay.
And so we've built a character that it's a baby fawn that comes from a magical forest. She has a best friend named Beanie the Bunny and a crush on a fox named Spark. and was sent to Earth to help a special child achieve their dreams. The child she was matched with, right?
Right.
And for every unit, so every child gets one that's matched with them. And
are they all the same animal? Same, I don't know, same thing, but
yeah.
are they the same item? The same.
Yeah, we need like a new language to talk about these things. Yeah, they're all baby deers. That's right.
And they all look alike. So it's okay.
But they're individual beings within that like class of, it's not an animal, but that class of being.
Well, I'm thinking back to the American Girl dolls when my kids were younger, where there were all these dolls and all these personalities and personas, and they didn't speak, but they each had energy and activity and things that they did. And so the kids would interact with them in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think they develop trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's interesting is that in our experience, and parents tell us this too, is that their kids will open up to Fawn in ways that they won't open up to their parent. So it's like the next step of that study. It's because if they'll tell things that happen in their day to Fawn that they wouldn't tell their mom, or their mom tells us that she won't share. And then, but it's okay if their mom's in the room. So there's this really interesting dynamic where parents are using it to actually like develop intimacy with their kids.
Yeah.
Because everybody, like there's, they're in the same room. Mom overhears the conversation. That's fine. Her daughter knows that they're in the same room. And then later mom brings up the thing that was shared with Fawn, and they get to have a conversation about the conflict that happened at the playground or thing was. So
it's because it's got this layer of distance. So, and it also allows the child to cultivate a trust, not just with Fawn, but also with the parent. It's almost like a testing. If I tell Fawn and my parent doesn't freak out and react, then I can now feel safer talking to my parent.
Well, it's so interesting you bring that up, because I've heard over and over again, actually, from moms that say like, oh, my daughter comes to me having rehearsed. So I don't remember the specific issue, but imagine like, I don't know, they're going somewhere on the weekend. She doesn't want to go, or she has to wear something she doesn't want to wear, whatever the thing is. And I keep using daughter as examples, but boys use Fawn lots too. And where they used to just come in sort of tantrum or come with zero tact and deliver whatever the thing they want is. And then all the burden is on the parent to be emotionally regulated.
Yeah.
Which ideally we all would be, but it's hard.
It doesn't always happen, right?
The end of a long day, they won't, like, whatever. The spaghetti just...
That's our realm. We do a lot of work on that, just so you know.
Well, that's beautiful, important work.
Yeah.
If and when children talk to Fawn about it first, they've rehearsed it a little bit. Fawn's specifically designed to support the parent. So they come sort of ready with the frame that I should help mom and dad here, but also the frame that like what I need is important. And so they get to have a different conversation than without Fawn.
And what's the age group that this is typically for?
Well, it's a great question. So we built it thinking age 6 to 12, but we keep finding older children using it, particularly like all the way up to 30
spectrum.
Sometimes. But yeah, those on the spectrum particularly. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. There's a whole other conversation we can't get into now, but like, how do you script an animal like that to be able to navigate the maturity of a 27-year-old or 20-year-old instead of the expectation of a 7-year-old? Is that a future issue to address?
Well, the gist of it is Robin has read the Harry Potter books every night for the last 3.5 years. She's read them front to back 20 times or whatever you would accomplish in that time period. And so Harry Potter is a great example of something that appeals to
all ages,
just like it appeals to a 10-year-old.
I got another set of books for her to check out.
What's that?
The artist's name is T.J. Klune, Klune, and she's written a couple of books, or they've written a couple of books called The Cerulean Chronicles, The House in the Cerulean Sea, and then I can't remember what the second book is called. It just came out in September of 2024. Beautiful, and they've kind of positioned themselves as the anti-J.K. Rowling because it's very inclusive and it's very accepting and tolerant and neurodiverse aware and all of that. So another place to look for that kind of inspiration.
Yeah, I'll pass it along to her.
Yeah. It's some of my favorite new books. So.
I think there's just, if the story is and the character is designed properly, it will appeal to both.
Yeah, I could see that. Beautiful. Well, it is a beautiful thing that you're doing. Your energy is lovely. I'm excited to find out more. Tell people how they can find out more about you and the name of the company, and those people who might want to find a fawn in their Christmas world or a holiday world.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to see videos of kids playing with it, which are just super cute, it's fawn.friends on Instagram. So FAWN.FRIENDS, fawn.friends on Instagram.
And we'll put that in the show notes, everybody. Make it easy.
Awesome. And then our website's www.fawnfriends.com.
Fawnfriends.com. And again, all of that will be in the show notes. And anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to share, or anything we have that you want to highlight?
Just that whoever's listening to this, the fact that you're putting the effort into listening to this podcast means you're exceptional as a parent. And the work you're doing is so important. The work on yourself that you're doing is so important to show up for your kid in the best way you can. And so just congratulations on making that choice to spend your hour, whatever this has been, in that way.
I love that. You could not be speaking more our language. That's fabulous.
Oh, cool.
So we always like to wrap with a favorite quote or motto. What's coming up for you today?
Oh, this one is almost deep. The biggest motto in my life right now is put truth first. Ooh. I actually got it tattooed on me recently, my only tattoo, which is a reminder. There's several levels to this, but the first level is the reminder that like my connection with the universe or the divine or the stability in me, the place that watches my ego go by, is the most important connection in my life. And from that place, I can stably show up for everybody else around me.
Yes. So, that is quintessentially putting your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
Existentially, almost. Yeah.
Essentially, it is. Yeah. I was hesitant. It's what came. I was hesitant to bring it up because it's a bit meta, but.
We do meta here. That's okay. I love it. Because a lot of what we're about in this community is that we have to pay attention to ourselves, and we have to, a lot of parents of neurodiverse kids feel like they have to, if they have a minute to spend, $1 to spend, they got to spend it on their kids. And what we know to be so true is when we slow down, we pay attention to ourselves and we downregulate our nervous systems and we stay present and do our own inner work, which is what you're speaking to. Our ability to be present to our kids is so much more profound. And to your point earlier, what they need from us when we're with them is our presence more than absolutely anything else. They need us to absolutely be there with them. And it's not just what we do.
It might even be more your own regulation. If you're regulated in a calm place, it's weird how the rest of the room feels the same way.
Well, mirror neurons are kind of powerful that way, right? When you are in this presence of someone else and you start to calm down and regulate your nervous system, other people's mirror neurons will pick that up. And so we can actually help our kids downregulate by managing our own emotional reactivity. But not always an easy thing to do. So,
I was going to say the good news and the bad news. Simple, but not easy.
Yeah. So put truth first. I love it. Peter, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thanks for your commitment to your community, which is our community. And I love the energy that you're bringing with it. It's beautiful. And I'm really, really glad that we got a chance to meet you and talk. It's lovely.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. And I appreciate you helping us get out into the world.
It's truly a pleasure. And to those of you listening, I will echo exactly what Peter just said, which is thank you for what you're doing for yourself and for your kids. At the end of the day, you make an extraordinary difference. Take care, everybody. See you next week.
You've been listening to the Parenting with Impact podcast with Elaine and Diane. For more information on the Impact Parents community or to join Sanity School for Parents, please visit impactparents.com. If you like what you've heard, please share this podcast with friends who need similar guidance and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.